the point is this: when you are homeless, you are invisible to the regular population. Yeah. And one of the kindest things that anybody would ever do for me if I was on the streets was, because I didn't panhandle or do anything like that. You would always find me in a dumpster. I'd be like digging. I call them like treasure finds. I'm looking for treasure finds. But when people would just even look at you and say hi, it was huge, because nobody wants to face the reality of what, shockingly and scarily enough, in this country could very well be you in a couple of months, not maybe due to drug addiction, but just the economy, paycheck to paycheck. Like, it's a terrifying thing to look at.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Amy, welcome to the Hopeaholics Podcast.
Hello.
Welcome, Amy.
Yes.
Really nice to have you. I know we heard her speak the other day.
Yes.
It was awesome.
At our in-person Recover Out Loud.
I'm going to dive right into it.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? Amy, you are obviously a troublesome life. Your first husband tried to kill you.
He did.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
How did you know about that?
He just asked.
Yeah. That's our Shane.
My new thing.
Dives right in.
Because I was like thinking back to her talking that night, and I don't remember that.
He said, what's the most traumatic thing that ever happened to
That's my
you?
new question for the guests, and that's how I'm going to come in.
The quest?
For the quest. For the quests.
It's going to be a quest and a journey.
Yeah.
For the quest and the journey for the guest, and I'm going to jump in right there like I did yesterday to grab people, man. I think it's a new thing, and I think I like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going right.
Yeah.
It'll be the only time I talk, and then I'm quiet the rest of the I'm quiet the rest of the bloody podcast, anyways.
Sounds good.
And you'll never hear from me again. Thank you.
Oh.
I mean, that is.
Was that a good thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And at exactly 73 minutes, I will fall asleep.
No, but that's a big one.
Yeah.
So how did that even shake down?
Okay, so my first husband was in the Marine Corps. At the time, I lived in Okinawa, Japan. So him and I met when I was 17. He was my first real boyfriend. I lost my virginity to him when I was 18. We got married when I was 21. Of course, I thought I was madly in love. And you couldn't have convinced me otherwise. But at 21, what is love to you, really? Yeah. Right? It's very different, you know. Like now I'm going to be 45 in June. I know there's a huge difference, but it was all I had the capacity for at the time. And I stayed with that man for nearly 12 years. 11 and a half of those years, he was cheating on me. But the thought of leaving him is like I couldn't catch my breath. You know the feeling, right? And then one day, somebody had told me one of his escapades, right? And I thought to myself, what's one more? And I realized in that moment I was finally free. So I was like, I get to leave him now, right? And at the time I believe he was in Afghanistan or Iraq. I don't remember. So this was back in 2008. So it was back still when we were, I guess the repercussions of September 11th. He was very much involved in all of that. And we had been together so long that I had made the decision that if ever the day came when I would leave him and he was deployed, I would never tell him over the phone, right? Because if you love somebody enough to marry them at some point in your life, like, why would you try to destroy everything just because it's time to let go, right? So I'm not an advocate of, destroying your partner. So he called me after I'd made the decision, and I was in the process of getting the legal separation already. And I said, hello. He said, what's wrong? I said, nothing. He said, you want a divorce, don't you? It was super weird. And I said, yes, right? And that was the entirety of the conversation. He had some kind of mental breakdown while he was over there, ended up getting sent home early. I had warning after warning, don't let him stay with you, et cetera, et cetera. He never put hands on me. We'd fought a lot, and he would throw things and punch walls, which I later found out. Let me correct myself. I was told that these are like red flags to somebody that would eventually put hands on you. But I knew that man would give his life to save mine. I knew he would never hurt me, right? I'd been with him for 12 years. I grew up with him. Almost half of my life at that point had been with him. Anyway, long story short, he came home. The first telltale sign that should have tipped me off that there was a problem is we had a chocolate lab that was about 3.5, 4 years old. So we got him when he was a puppy. He came to Japan with us. I opened the door. Toby was inside. He looked at me And then he kind of looked around behind me and he saw my ex, who was, he'd left for months and months before, and Toby came home, was excited to see him, started growling and snarling and trying to like attack him.
Oh, wow.
I was like, that's fucking weird, right?
Yeah.
So I grabbed the dog, put him off to the side. We go inside. Ultimately, he wasn't happy with the fact that I was leaving him. And we had been arguing all night. Now, this is one of those moments where what you probably will learn about me in terms of the disease of alcoholism is that I have the allergy, but I don't have the obsession. I'm not somebody that obsesses about getting loaded. It's just not there for me. But I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. In the chapter 4, it says, if when you want to stop, you find you cannot, or when you start, you have little control over the amount you take, you might be an alcoholic. It says or, not and. I'm an or. Okay. So I was able to identify that he was drinking way more than he should be at that point. And I think I was drinking, I know I was drinking like Mike's Hard Lemonades, right? It wasn't even like, and believe me, I could put some shit back. So it wasn't affecting me. And the more drunk he got, the more I realized I needed to slow down so I could have my wits about me. I just could tell something was off. And it probably was 1:00 in the morning at this point, just going and going and going. I said, look, I just need 5 minutes. I smoked at the time. He did not. So I said, I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. Let me have 5 minutes and then I'll come argue with you until the fucking sun comes up if that's what you need, right? Because I was trying to make it as easy as possible. I'd spent a lot of time with this man. So he said, okay, we lived in what are called sixplexes. So all it is it's 6 apartment units, 3 on the bottom, 3 on the top. They're made out of cinder blocks for typhoons. They're like these gnarly structures. We lived in the middle on the bottom floor, and there was my front door. If you came out my front door, the stairs went for the above apartment building went over my door, right? And they're just covered in stucco, all cinder block. So I walked out the door. I hung a right. The stairs would have been to my right. He was behind me, and he grabbed me and stopped me, and I turned around, and he leaned in to kiss me, and I leaned back. I'm like, we're done. Like, this is finally over. I've made my decision. And I turned around and I went to go sit on the stairs. And as I was sitting down, he had punched the side of the stairs, and I watched his eyes turn black. It was the wildest thing. And he came around the stairs and he grabbed me by the throat, bashed my head into the stairs. And then, now keep in mind, he was a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps at the time. He knew what to do to hurt somebody, right? But he was so drunk, and I watched him kind of check out. It was wild. Sure. And then he stiff-boarded his body on top of me. So basically, like, I guess the best way to describe it is if he had my throat in his hand, my throat would have been next to the right side of his chest. So his chest was over my face. And at the time, I didn't know how I had gotten him off of me. But the next morning, he came back to get some things. He was supposed to become supervised, but of course he was a staff sergeant, so he could do whatever he wanted. The guy waited outside. He still reeked of booze. He kind of pinned me up against the washing machine in our house, and he said, I thought you were lying. But then I saw this, and he pulls his shirt back, and you could have taken my dental records off of his chest. Jesus. So I guess and as soon as I saw it, I remembered feeling the flesh in my teeth. Oh. And because I guess what had happened is I remember being with him on top of me. And I remember I had a cell phone and my cigarettes in one hand, in my left hand, and I had that drink in my right hand. And I remember throwing the drink so I could try to push him off of me, but because I had my cell phone in my left hand, I wanted to hold on to it so that I could try to use it, which really, it doesn't much matter. It was an Okinawan cell phone, so I had to call on base and then be routed to the military police in order to. That's a funny side story too. Anyway, so I remember trying to push him off me, but I didn't remember anything after that. But then when I saw his chest, I remembered I bit him, and I think I bit him so hard that it snapped him out of whatever was going on, and he kind of stood up and like stumbled back behind me, backward, and I stood up, and so where I lived was a base called Camp Macterius. It's a tiny little housing base, and I lived like half a block from the main gate, and at the front gate is armed Japanese guards. Right, big ass rifles. So I thought if I book it to the front, that's the smartest thing for me to do right now. So I started to go that way, and he grabbed me by the wrist, and he's, where are you going? All angry with me, like I had done something. And I said, you just try to fucking kill me. And I kneed him in the balls, and I ripped my hands out, and I started running towards the baseball, calling my friend, who was somebody that I had actually started seeing already after I was already legally separated. Let's clarify that. Yeah. But he was actually an MP, and he's the one that arrested my first husband that evening and actually became my second husband. Oh, yeah. Wow. Wild shit. Wow. But him and I were already fucking at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wild. It was super crazy.
And how did that
That's a crazy military lifestyle.
Oh,
bro.
yeah.
That is the military. It
is.
It's not.
It is.
You're in there, and it's in such. It seems, you know what I mean? Like the recovery. Everyone knows everybody. You're in a small. It's insensual. What's the word?
Sexual.
Yeah.
That
word.
It's like everybody knows everybody.
Oh,
if
yeah.
someone gets a divorce,
Especially
someone
in
else is
Okinawa.
having sex with them. If they're not having fun, they're having, and you just, so that's life.
Yeah, well, and you also have to consider the fraternity of at least the Marine Corps
Right.
is nothing but alcohol.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Right, like I remember, like we would have these raging keggers on Camp Pendleton, and because I lived on Camp Pendleton as well.
Oh, wow.
And I remember at the time, I'm going to go over and drink with Sergeant Hall's wife because I had the reputation of, you're not going to outdrink me. I have the genetics to fucking drink, right? Like I have a minute 24 keg stand underneath my belt.
Wow.
Right? Like for those that don't know what a keg standing is, it's where you
Pretty
grab
big.
the keg, they
Yeah.
stand you up, and they just pour that shit in your mouth. The fact that it's so cold makes it hard, but I got timed at my top at a minute and 24 seconds. I
never
think
done that
like might have fallen off
I've
the
never done a
keg,
keg.
Yeah.
but I was determined.
So then after that kind of episode, you guys were able to walk away, I'm assuming.
So ultimately what happened with that is once you get to a certain rank in the Marine Corps, you kind of become untouchable, I guess is the best way to say it. Once you're a staff NCO, which is what he was,
No, just so we're clear, that's the highest level you can go for a
it's so there's
not a
it's
captain or
there's enlisted, which is
yes.
like the private first class,
Yes.
sergeant first, all that.
Yeah.
That's enlisted. So a staff NCO is the next level up, and that's when you get to the top ranking of a staff NCO,
Yes.
then that's where the cap is.
That's the
Next
cap.
is officer. And that's
what
a
I
whole
meant.
different route.
Next is officers.
Yeah.
But
So
you have
he was like the lowest of the totem pole for the staff NCO.
That's what I was saying. So
Yeah.
he went as high as you can without, say, that 4-year college education, I think.
Yeah, you can. They have something called Mustangs, and these
Right.
are men that don't require the college education,
Right.
and they can basically move into an officer position, but it's a different type of
Different
officer
type
that's
of
not as high ranking.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's been years since I've been around the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
so
no,
some
you're
of
right.
my
I just
knowledge is a
wanted
little
to
rusty.
put everyone out there.
But I was married to
It's a
the Marine
pretty-
Corps for a
pretty
lot
high-
of years. A lot of
pretty
years.
high rank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He joined the Marine Corps 6 months after him and I started dating when I was 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and it was wild. I remember the man that I was dating going into the Marine Corps and the person that came out after was not the same person,
Yeah.
but I stayed because I was young and insecure, and I'd never had a boyfriend because I'm a very outspoken, confident woman, which, especially in high school, does not equate to lots of boyfriends. So the first guy that showed any interest in me, I was like, oh my God, somebody finally likes me, right?
Yeah.
And then I just throw my entire, I would change my genetic makeup.
You could make excuses like that, but when you tell me that you lost your virginity at 18 years
That's
old,
part of it.
I'm saying that's a pretty decent age and you're more mature at that point.
Yeah.
And it's not like you didn't have opportunities. I mean, any woman could throw themselves at someone when they're 14 or 15.
Correct.
And you never did that.
Correct. So this all went out the window when I was on the streets and slamming meth. However, my mom and I have always had a very open dialogue about anything and everything, right?
Yeah.
I don't ever remember not being able to speak to her about sex or what have you. And when I was, since I can remember, my mom told me, when you have sex with another human being, you are physically putting inside another person.
Yeah.
Why would you want to share that with
There
everybody?
you go. Good for you.
And I
good for your
believed
mom.
her, and I still
Good.
believe her to this
Yeah.
day. However, once you put
woman.
a needle in my arm, things get a little bit different.
Sure.
Meth will do that, man.
Yeah, but I will say, if I wasn't gonna fuck you before I got high, I wouldn't fuck you after I got high. So let's make that clear. I managed to pull that off. Yeah, I didn't all of a sudden become attracted to men that I didn't want to fuck.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm like, thanks for getting me high. I knew you thought something was coming, but I'm out. And I would also make that clear. Like, I'm not gonna fuck you because you're getting me high. And they would always, roll the dice, and they would lose. But hey, I got a fat ass. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna get high for free.
When did you realize that you had a problem with substance?
Oh, gee. That is such a funny question to me because I can say that as a recovered alcoholic, that I had a problem when I was 21. However, I couldn't say that I fully completed a first step saying that I was powerless over drugs and alcohol until I was 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that only happened because my probation officer forced me to go to detox.
Holy
In
smokes.
fact, I have plans today because I haven't seen that woman in years. I have a 5-year chip. I'm hoping to stop by probation and give her that chip today since I have the day off.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's her name?
awesome.
What's her name?
Laura Arianes. She's a Santa Ana probation.
Wow.
She's an amazing woman.
Well, good for you.
Still doing. She's still doing the deal.
She is. I called to see if I could make an appointment, and they transferred me to her voicemail, but the call dropped. So I was like, you know what? Maybe that's God just saying I need to show up.
There you go.
But that also reminds me of this. I don't know if any of you guys spend any time homeless on the streets. Have you or no? So it's a very unique experience. When you are homeless, I was on the streets for 3 years. I lived at I lived in Santa Ana for the majority of it. I don't know if you're familiar with, you remember the whole riverbed scenario,
Oh, yeah.
right? So there was also the Civic Center in Santa Ana across the street from the main jail. And it was basically, there's this slab of concrete surrounded by flags that is in between the law library and the actual courthouse. And they had pushed all of the homeless people of Santa Ana up onto that cement slab. So it was this huge homeless encampment. They said there was like 100 of us. There was at least 300 to 500 people there, just stacked on top of each other. And I ended up living there for quite some time. And anyway, the point is this: when you are homeless, you are invisible to the regular population. Yeah. And one of the kindest things that anybody would ever do for me if I was on the streets was, because I didn't panhandle or do anything like that. You would always find me in a dumpster. I'd be like digging. I call them like treasure finds. I'm looking for treasure finds. But when people would just even look at you and say hi, it was huge, because nobody wants to face the reality of what, shockingly and scarily enough, in this country could very well be you in a couple of months, not maybe due to drug addiction, but just the economy, paycheck to paycheck. Like it's a terrifying thing to look at. And when it's right there in front of your face in a really nice area, it's easier to just pretend we don't exist. So I was, at this time I was in Anaheim Hills. I was living in this spot like behind the extended stay. And it was like the most horrific experience of my life. And that's not true. It was terrible, right? So I had this spot that was like dug into the side of a mountain, and we had like it was pretty sick, right? I'm just sitting there fucking around, and all of a sudden there's like this river just flowing through the front of and then into my spot. And all of my stuff is literally being washed away at rapid speeds. And I didn't understand. It wasn't raining, right? It's Southern California. It's like the middle of the summer. Like, it made no sense. So I get up and I try to go find the source of this water. And so the extended stay, there's a big ass wall, and then there's just a ton of dirt, and then the freeway. And I'm like all the way over here. So I follow, and in the extended stay parking lot, there was a fire hydrant that had gotten knocked over. And the course of that water was directly into my spot, hundreds of yards away, right? So I go it's right next to a Jerome's. I go over on my bike, and I'm looking for snipes, which, if you don't know what those are, they're half smoked cigarettes, right? So I will put whatever's been in God knows whose mouth into my mouth and smoke that, because I would like some nicotine. So I'm looking for one of those, and there's always a ton of them. Somebody there smoked Marlboro Ultralight 100s, and she always left big butts, right? Yeah. So I'm out there looking for her cigarettes, and this woman comes out. And she sees what I'm doing. She asks what's going on, and I tell her. And I'm all distraught. All my stuff, all my worldly belongings are gone. It's just a bunch of trash, right? I'm homeless and I'm on meth, right? So she says, hold on. She goes inside. She comes back out with a full pack of cigarettes with one cigarette missing and $100 cash. And she said, I used to be on the streets. I've been there. And she gave it to me. And I actually made sure that I didn't spend any of that money on drugs. I spent all of it on food or clothes or whatever, because I understood just the generosity and what it was that she was doing. Yeah, it was huge. Cool. And I got the opportunity I think I was like a year and a half, 2 years sober. I tracked her down. She didn't work at that Jerome's anymore, but she did work at a Bob's Furniture in Huntington Beach. Her name is MJ. Beautiful woman. So I went and I found her there. I brought her flowers, and I asked her if she remembered that. And she said, yeah. I said, I'm her. And she just started sobbing. And I'm pretty sure she was in recovery as well. So that was pretty cool. I've gotten a lot of good opportunities.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. So
damn. But what's really crazy about your story is that you were married 12 years. Then you went into a second marriage with another individual that was in the Marine Corps. Yeah. And how long was that?
Well, legally, we are still married, but I have not seen him since 2014. Him and I were together for about 6 years. So what I've realized is I cut my relationships in half. So my first marriage, 12 years, second, 6 years. And then my relationship on the street was 3. It was. And hopefully I'm almost a year and a half with my current boyfriend. I think we're going to, withstand the test of time.
Right.
It's a little bit different now.
But you've been sober how long now?
Just over 5 years. I took 5 years, November 14th.
See, that's,
And that
there's a significant difference in this new relationship, huh?
Oh my God. You want to know what a healthy relationship is? Come talk to my boyfriend and I. It is the most beautiful thing. I have never one time him and I have been dating for just over a year. I've never questioned how he feels about me. Never once. And the stark difference between that and my other relationships, I've only had 3 major ones.
Sure.
I always wondered if they actually loved me because they said it, but they didn't show me. Whereas I've never one time questioned how my current boyfriend feels about me because he shows me through his actions on a regular basis. There's
Is he in
no
recovery as well?
Huh? Yeah, he is. He is. You want to know the crazy thing about that is that, so this is a good example of how God works in your life, right? So my sobriety date is November 14th of 2019. My dad took his last breath with 35 years sober on November 14th of 2022. I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary with my boyfriend on November 14th of 2024.
Good for you.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That is wild.
Cool.
So what I look at that as, God took a date that could have been the most horrible, mournful, right? And he coupled it with 2 beautiful things. So although it is bittersweet, I can't help but feel joy on that day.
Sure.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. My life's wild.
It is wild.
We don't have time for all of it.
I have a crazy date like that. Not
What
my
is it?
recovery date, but we have a horrific family event on. So my oldest sister, she's the oldest of all of us, was born on February 2nd. On her 3rd birthday, February 2nd, my first brother, which I never met, was run over by a car at her birthday party and died. I don't know how many years later, but my son was born on February 2nd.
Wow.
That is crazy.
That's
Which
crazy.
was the first time that my oldest sister was able to enjoy February 2nd.
Totally.
So that's like a 2-fold gift of your child being born.
Yeah.
Right? I have another crazy date, but it's not a good one.
Yours is the 14 is the day?
November 14th, yeah.
I like that.
I also have December 13th, which is wild. So
That's so weird because my favorite number is 13 and my wife's favorite number is 14. Okay.
is
keep going.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is, the the first time a man tried to take my life was the story I told you when we started. His birthday is on December 13th. The second time I almost lost my life at the hands of a man. I was drugged in a bar, beaten within an inch of my life. I don't remember any of it. It was gnarly. That happened on December 13th of 2014. And then I know you guys didn't spend time on the streets, but I know if you've ever interacted with people on meth, right, you can tell there's some people that are just a little bit off and you almost believe that there's like demonic involvement.
For sure.
Right? So I was on the streets at this point, and there was this woman that I'd known. She was a drinker, and she just was real off. She looked all fucked off, and she needed help. So she comes over to the spot where me and my friend were there. And I'm calling the fire department trying to get her some kind of medical assistance. Her leg was all messed up. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she just starts antagonizing my friend, but she's saying things to him that she shouldn't know, and it's clear, and he's getting really uncomfortable, and just going in. I'm like, that's really strange, and I could just feel something was wrong, right, spiritually. And so I get on the phone with somebody, and they ask for her birthday, and she says it's December 13th. And then she's looking me dead in the eye. She said, my granddaughter was also born on December 13th, and gives the year. And then her pupils pinned to like these tiny little pinpoints. She cocked her head to the side in such an unnatural way. And she looked at me and she said, December 13th of 2014 is the last day in the millennium that will be consecutive. And that was the date I was assaulted. She had no way of knowing that. And like she's like looking through my soul. I fucking ran. I was like, I'm out. I'm done. I don't know what you're up to, but not doing this.
That is horrifying.
It was horrifying. And I believed for the longest time that when December 13th landed on a Friday, that was going to be the day that I died, which actually the last Friday the 13th was December 13th. And now I'm convinced that is a day that I'm probably meant to do something extremely extraordinary to impact change in the world, and that whatever force of evil that is out there is trying to scare me away from that, to keep me from accomplishing that goal. The only thing I can consider.
Yeah.
So I didn't answer your question when you asked earlier for whatever reason. I don't know why. I was homeless from 18 to 22 years old.
Were you halfway homeless, or were you like on the streets?
I was like hustling on the streets.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I never did the homeless encampment type stuff.
Right.
I mean, I would do whatever I had to do to, I mean, there were times though when I had to walk through parks because I didn't actually have a place to put my head down.
Like, I'm just going to stay awake so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
I love that.
But I mean, I was down in San Bernardino County during those 5 years. And, that there was a place called the Colton Inn where it was like $19.99 for the night. $2 extra, you got porn.
Oh, nice.
A lot of hookers and stuff in that. And when things were really bad, that's where I was when I felt like I was hustling and selling a little bit of meth, which I was terrible at. I might have been at the Motel 6.
Nice. Well, that's an upgrade for sure. What is that like? It's like the Sandpiper in Costa Mesa. Right?
It's
like,
very similar to that.
I did the hotel hopping thing for a while. I used to sling a lot of dope. I think last time I was here, I told you I used to sell a lot of drugs right here.
In San Juan.
In San Juan, yeah. I used to sling for the San Juan Southsiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, until I got connected with some people in TJ.
I just never, there was always somebody, if nothing else. I was good at keeping people just high enough that they would let me stay in their apartment but I was homeless.
Yeah, the people will say that they were homeless and they were living in their car, and I don't disagree that's homeless. But there's a stark difference between being physically on the streets and having a door to lock behind you, right?
Yeah.
Especially as a woman, it's a very different experience. As a woman.
Yeah.
I remember I would always be just baffled by these women that were on the streets that were in these terribly abusive relationships, and I couldn't understand why they would stay with these guys. And I just had this moment of epiphany because I was single most of the time on the street. And when I was with somebody, like, he ain't be fucking around like that. That's not going to happen. And he knew it. But it dawned on me, like, when you're out there and you're single, you have to be concerned about the assault of all men.
Yeah.
Completely.
But if you're just with one guy, you just have to worry about him. And he's going to protect you from all the other ones. So it made sense. It's a security thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
When was the moment that brought you to your knees to actually get help and get you out of that life? From being homeless to the beautiful woman that's sitting here today.
Oh my God, she says I'm pretty. No, honestly, I wish I could say I had this epiphany moment and I was like, I need a better life. I had a homeless problem and you couldn't convince me otherwise. I didn't have a drug problem. I like to say that I sit here and I'm sober because my PO made me do it, and I worked all 12 steps in order, and I recovered against my will. So basically, what happened is for some reason I never absconded. I always checked in, but I was always loaded as shit, right? And when you're at Santa Ana probation, they put the spit swab in the side of your mouth. And when you're gout out on meth, that is a very hard task to complete, right? Because you're like...
I can't even get enough spit to fucking get that thing soaking wet.
Right? And we would just sit there and stare at each other, both knowing what was actually going on. And it's like, bitch, I know you're loaded. And I'd be like, I know you know I'm loaded, but I'm going to try to pull it off, right? But ultimately what happened is she told me to go to outpatient, right? Now, at this time, I was not familiar with the recovery world at all. So I have a 17-year career in medical billing and collections. So I know a lot of the ins and outs of health insurance and healthcare and how that works. So I was able to bullshit my way through Medi-Cal not doing this or doing that for quite some time. And so finally she said, well, you know what? You blew off the outpatient thing. You need to go to inpatient treatment. And so I managed to push that off for a couple of weeks. I didn't know the difference. And I came in and she said, you can't even give me a clean drug test. You're going to have to go to detox. And I remember thinking, what the fuck? Isn't rehab for people that are high? Why would I need to be sober to go to rehab? Right? It totally baffled me. I did not understand what the problem was. Mm-hmm. So at that point, she gave me the number for the Rock Center, which is the detox in Stanton at the time.
Yeah.
I think that they're back to this after COVID, but at that time prior to COVID, you called that day, they would give you a bed the next day. Simple as that. So she said, here's the number. It was a Monday. She said, you be in there tomorrow. And if you're not in there tomorrow, you be in my office. And I knew that meant if I was in her office, I was going to jail because they cannot violate you for getting high, but they can violate you for not following a directive. And a directive is anything they tell you to do, right? So I had to think about it. I really did. And that's the fucked up part. I was like, fuck.
Wow, they can't violate you for being high?
No, you can't get violated for being loaded.
When I was on probation, you could.
Yeah, well, when I was in high school, you could get fucking like 20 years in prison for having a fucking pookie on you, right? Like, things are different now.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is true.
You could show up loaded to probation.
Fuck yeah, I did every single time.
See, and I would have gone to probation, but see, when I always absconded because I knew I was loaded and I knew I was going to get busted. So I was just like, fuck it, let them catch me.
And that might be the very reason they changed it, right? Because I showed up to probation. I never absconded because I could show up high.
Oh.
She would give me shit for it, and there'd always be a problem for it. And there'd always be this little dance where I'd pretend like I was doing less, right? But if I'm
not committing crimes, but I'm loaded. Sorry.
Right. But at least I'm here checking in as I should be.
Yeah. You're not breaking really any laws.
Right. Well, and it also gives them the opportunity to hopefully get you the help
Get
that you
some
need.
sense into you. Yeah.
Right. Because had it, honestly,
I really
that
like the
woman
new form.
Yeah.
It's
that woman
way
saved
more-
my life.
Yeah, man.
She saved my life.
At least you show up. You have someone that kind of.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things I don't like. I don't like the fact that like they can't use the jail system though to kind of almost she did find that little loophole to make it work for you.
Yeah.
But the other part I don't like is now, let's say she didn't go to detox and she gets violated for not following the directive of her PO. Now she goes to Orange County Jail. And she gets put on Suboxone. Not a fan of the Suboxone in the Orange County Jail.
That's a whole other.
It's much horseshit. They actually give you methadone in there. I watched. I was.
Well, now
locked up
I mean,
with,
from what
I think they do. So the Suboxone I think is smuggled in. But the methadone they give. We
had the sheriff on. He's.
Oh Jesus.
He's.
I don't know. Like I remember the last time I was violated. I was in there with two of my girlfriends were pregnant. They're women that I knew prior to that stint, right? And they were high as fuck every single day on methadone. Like how? Oh, because
they came in on opiates, and when you're pregnant though, you cannot come off.
You can, but you don't need to be on that high of a dosage, right? They're loaded, like fucked off, right? It's bad.
Yeah,
it's bad, and so I am a big book thumper. Yeah. Right? So I am somebody that's very, like I had said, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the program that I work comes directly out of the pages of that book. And there are a lot of people that unfortunately have their program that they work and they call it AA, but it's simply not. And there's a big struggle with the Suboxone situation, right? From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that medication exists and was initially made was to help with the detox and immediately titrate off of it so that you would no longer be addicted to a substance. And that's what I understood it to be used for. Things are very different now. I know that there's different motivations behind it. I'm not going to get into that. It's just my opinion. You cannot depend on God if you are depending on a substance. And there's the best way I like to explain it is that if you run out of Suboxone tomorrow, are you going to get on your knees in prayer? Or are you going to go get loaded? Right? You can't recover that way. Not to say it doesn't have its place, because it absolutely does. And I also look at it this way. I was a tweaker when I got to detox. If they had said, here's some Adderall to help you wean off the meth, I'd be on fucking Adderall right now. Are you kidding me? I didn't know any better. Right. So I feel like it's my it's a requirement of me carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous to let people know, like, if you ask me to sponsor you and you're on Suboxone, I'll absolutely say yes, but we can't do a third step until you're off of it. It is as simple as that. And the third step, for those that aren't familiar, is giving your will and your life over the care of God. I don't have the book on me, but there's a story in the book called Acceptance Was the Answer. And it's the one that everybody refers back to when they're like, page 417, acceptance was the answer. That story's hysterical. That man is fucking great. But at one point in the story, he's a doctor and a pharmacist. He says, I've learned that I can't have any substances in my home because I can't say God will restore me to sanity, but until he does, I'll control myself with pills. Is exactly what he says in his story. I think that's a perfect example of why we really do, if you want to do what I'm doing, we really do need to find a way to depend on God fully. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. I'm off my soapbox now.
No.
I mean, you and I think a lot alike. I don't know that everybody thinks that way. But
you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. I just think of all those Italians in the blue state that are drinking wine on a daily basis, living till 90, having a great life.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not.
They're not addicts,
Yeah.
so they're
Right.
living just different. So
Right. I can have if a glass is good, a bottle's better.
Well,
right?
and also too, it says it in the book. Like my hat's off to him.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I wish I could.
Yeah.
To this day, I still wish I could.
well,
if
I'm
I
just saying
could,
there are
I
people that
would.
can be to God and still have that.
Oh,
thing.
Absolutely.
I'm talking specifically about an alcoholic of my
Yeah.
variety.
I understand. I just wanna
So,
make
yeah,
it
I'm
clear
glad for the
people.
clarification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
A
Because
normal
there-
person
yes.
doesn't have the problem.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100%.
Completely.
Yeah. Sorry. What?
No, that's good though. That's good because it is very true that there's a magnitude of people that are normies that can totally have a glass of wine or a bottle and totally be still like right with God. But
Yeah.
this is for the,
The cray craze.
Yeah.
That's cray cray. People.
But I will interject with the fact that their life might be better if they didn't have that glass of wine.
It could very well
Yeah.
be.
That's all I would, I don't know if it would or wouldn't, and that's not what, but we're not here. We're actually not here ever truly talking about somebody that doesn't have a problem.
No.
Right.
People
That is true.
people that come and we're talking about this. I'm specifically like, Suboxone was not created for the reason that you said.
It wasn't.
It was always created by the pharmaceutical company for me to have you on it forever.
That makes sense.
It,
I think it should have been created for that.
I mean, it is one of the ways that that we use it. But when the pharmaceutical company put it out, and I've been around the industry since the day it came out, they've been pushing for Suboxone maintenance.
That makes sense because they want the money.
Of course.
They call that harm reduction.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way they sounded it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does reduce harm.
Yeah.
Methadone was put out for harm reduction.
Yeah.
Right.
Methadone does reduce harm.
You know, the
But-
thing with methadone though is that I've never been a heroin user, but I know that apparently the warm and fuzzies when you do methadone and heroin together is an amazing feeling.
Well, that's what I noticed when I was like actually going to NA meetings. There would be a couple of guys in there that were, coming from the clinic, getting their whatever dosage of methadone. Not only were they like high as fuck in the meeting,
Yeah.
but then they weren't able to like stay sober at all because
Did
after
they try to share?
after the meeting, they're running and gunning the same. So it's like it's hard because
The only
obviously
requirement for membership is a desire to stop using.
Correct. Right. And I'm not saying you can't be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
No,
but,
and
but
who cares? There's so many times, like
Yeah.
I've even walked into many times AA, NA meetings, and I was not sober.
Yeah.
So it's like keep coming back. That's why those
Yeah.
like cliches exist. However, it's one of those things where a lot of alcoholics, me included, is you're going to, if you are prescribed a methadone or
You're
a
gonna take
Suboxone, you're not only going to take it, but we're also really good at manipulating
Yep.
situations, and then you can all of a sudden now you're dependent upon and don't want to actually try to wean yourself off of because you have a so-called doctor or somebody telling you like,
You
no,
don't
it's
have to.
okay.
Yeah.
So like, why wouldn't you?
Right. And that's why
So
that's
that's the problem.
Yeah, and that's why I take every opportunity when I'm on a platform like this, when I'm at a podium, to share that there is a distinct difference between being sober and being recovered.
Sure.
Okay, so recovered is defined by the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It tells you on step 12, it says having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. That's my goal, a spiritual awakening. It doesn't say A, it says the. And I believe that's the only like major difference between NA and AA steps is they say A, we say the. So my goal is a spiritual awakening. I do that through connecting with God to the best of my ability. Being recovered is I'm recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I'm returned to a sane state of mind and body. The 10th step promises is that the problem has been removed. It does not exist for me so long as I stay in fit spiritual condition. That's what the book says.
Yep.
So basically I do steps 1 through 9, right? I make my amends. And then if I do 10, 11, and 12 every single day, that means that I am maintaining daily the ability to not gain an additional or a new resentment. I am staying connected with God, and I'm doing things such as this where I'm carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and what does the book tell me? My primary purpose is to stay sober and help another alcoholic achieve recovery. And then it says my main purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. That's what the book says, right? So that's what I have to do every day. And as long as I do that every day, I remain recovered, meaning I don't have to worry about not getting high. You could put a pound of meth on this table right here and be like, we should probably get rid of that, right? I wouldn't want to get loaded. But if I stop doing those things, the day will come where I do, and I will.
And it might not be tomorrow, and it might not be the next day.
Yeah, and that's the scary part about it, right? Because the book says the same man will drink again, but it does not give a time frame.
It's so true.
Yeah. So, and that the scary part about this disease is it talks about it on page 24. I'm sorry, I get like
No, it's
this.
nice.
No, it's good.
Okay, because I'm big into the book. I love everything that it provides.
It's a lifesaver.
It saved my fucking life. I'm
Totally.
in love with
It
the
is a
program of
lifesaver.
Alcoholics Anonymous. But it tells us, it says an alcoholic at certain times cannot bring into consciousness with sufficient force the memory and the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. Meaning, what is like the number one relapse recovery prevention tool that they like to give you? Play the tape.
Yeah,
through.
play the tape, or don't forget your last
Yeah, play the tape through, right? So what that sentence is saying in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is that if I am a real alcoholic, I am incapable of playing the tape through, and if I do, it's probably Girls Gone Wild.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So-
how it was for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It wasn't Girls Gone Wild. It was
you were the
that
guy.
hip hop video.
You were the
Right.
kid.
Yeah, the swimming pool was full of half naked girls.
Yeah.
there was bottles popping everywhere.
Yeah.
and I was the only guy there. Maybe Shane.
So it was going to be glorious.
No,
Yep.
you'd
Right?
be by yourself.
And guess what?
It never happened that way.
Never.
Right, and but the problem
Never.
is that it's at certain times. So there's other parts in the book where they share the experience of men that learned about the disease of alcoholism and that they had it. Right, so they're like, everything was fine. Like, I was living my life, doing my thing. Right, and then I don't know. I just thought, hey, I'd have like not a cloud on the horizon, right? It was the end of a perfect day. I thought I'd have a cocktail with dinner. And this guy goes on a sick ass like 7-day run. He flies back home, dips out on his wife who's waiting at the airport, gets in a taxi cab, and just fucking goes on a sick ass run for like a week, and has no idea what he did. And this is back in the 30s, bro. Like, tell me that I'm any different.
Right.
So you don't know when it's going to happen. You probably can say, oh no, I don't want it. No, I don't need it. No, it's not for me. And then one day, boom, you're just going to forget.
Which is wild.
It
That's
is.
what's like, I think to me, that's like the scariest thing about the disease is the massive amount of, say, not only destruction or, say, legal consequences that can arise from the addiction. And then for you to work, whatever, couple years or multiple magnitude. I've heard in meetings like people going out at 20 years.
Yeah, it's
because
wild.
it says it in the book. We rest on our laurels.
Yeah.
Faith without works is dead.
I've seen many
all that
people
stuff.
20 years.
Yeah.
20
Yes.
years is actually like kind of like a
Yes.
number. You know,
I think I'm good.
It's like 15 to 20 is like a number because it makes sense too, because you start to get your shit back.
Yeah.
You start getting all of the things that you at once desired, and then the promises start to happen, and then you forget what really brought you there,
Yeah.
which is
God.
God first,
Yeah.
and you carrying the message and being of service.
Absolutely.
That goes away, and then all of a sudden
You're fucked.
you're picking up a pipe
Yeah,
and you're
man.
fucking right
That's
back
it.
Yeah.
running and gunning like nothing ever happened
Yeah.
within those 15 years. That's what's scary.
It is.
I really like that book, the big book, and I like it because it is kind of like the Bible.
It is.
But they call it the big book and the big book. That's
The
what my dad
Bible
used to call
tells
it.
you to be good to people at all costs, no matter what. My religion, it's called Tikkun Olam, and that is 5,000 years old, and it was prophesized. And what that Tikkun Olam is, you could look it up. It says that we were put on this earth to better society by any means necessary.
Yeah.
That is our job as our base religion. That is our job.
I'm pretty sure that the, and this is where people get like, AA is a cult, but I'm pretty sure most of AA came out of the Old Testament,
Yes.
which is your book, buddy.
Yes, it did.
A lot of it did, and the thing is it'll say it in the big book. Those with religious affiliations will find nothing in this book that I don't remember the exact verbatim, but basically you're not going to find anything contradictory. Every religion, right? We all have. It's all the same basic theme and
It's all
principle.
good.
Be a decent human being.
Totally.
Don't fucking shit on the world.
Be of
Don't help
service.
everybody.
Be
There you
kind.
go.
Right.
There
It's
you go.
basically the golden rule: do unto others as you want done to you,
Absolutely.
and you're not better than anybody else.
And
Bingo.
when you mistakenly do unto somebody that you wouldn't normally,
Yeah.
Fix it.
fix it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Immediately.
Apologize.
Yes.
Immediately.
And our way even has a way out. Our way says that if, in the big book, it says if you apologize to that person, our book kind of says that if you apologize 3 times, that's the it.
We only have to do it once.
Exactly. Ours went 3 times, and it's on them. The penalty is now on the other person to apologize to you.
Yeah.
So it's all there's so it's nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of similarities. It says you've made your effort. It's water under the dam, I believe is what the book says.
Yeah,
right?
I love it.
I have to clean up my side of the street. All I can worry about every single day is me and my behavior. It's the only thing I can control. And it talks about too. It says, I'm supposed to wake up every morning and give my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him, whatever that means to you, right? And it says, under these conditions, basically directly after that part, it says we can exercise our willpower along these lines. It's the proper use of the will. Meaning, to me, the way that I interpret that, the only willpower that I could possibly have is the ability to, within those first seconds of me waking up, say, God, you're in charge. And if I'm capable of doing that, then I'm safe for the remainder of the day because God's not going to leave me astray. Outside of that, I can't really do a whole lot, right? I'm barely capable of keeping my mouth shut when I'm supposed to, you know? I know, it's wild.
I know. I think it's like we're really fortunate in the grand scheme of things because I feel that, we always say it too here is that non-alcoholics or normies, they can totally benefit from picking up the big book and just having a read through it because the principles that it teaches you is really beneficial to humans in general.
Yeah, you can replace the only step in Alcoholics Anonymous that says alcohol is step 1, but you can replace that word with anything that's happening in your life.
For sure.
Right. Well, and the thing is, too, is just read the doctor's opinion. It says
totally.
A man specializing in the treatment of alcoholic and drug addiction, right? They talk about drugs over and over again in that book. Like Acceptance Was the Answer. That's Dr. Paul. He's fucking great.
Yeah.
He's written a few other books like You
story.
Can't. Yeah. He wrote a book called You Can't Make Me Angry. He's what are they called? Double winners. He's an AA and an Al-Anon. So he has a lot of, that's why he's so like acceptance, right? Which is very much an Al-Anon trait. His story, I believe, is one of the original stories in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If not, it was in the 2nd edition. And if you read that whole thing through, that man is literally a junkie tweaker on medical grade heroin and meth. He slams the drug that they use to put you to sleep for anesthesia in his garage, in his car, and then runs to his bedroom to fall asleep next to his wife. And you're telling me I can't talk about drugs in Alcoholics Anonymous? If it's in the book, I can talk about it. That's how I feel.
I do too. But it's so interesting to me how I never really had that in my experience because I think I just didn't care. Yeah. And nobody really like in meetings would like shun me if I spoke about drugs because drugs is part of my story. However, I know other people or girls that I would sponsor and you would have some people, be really kind of AA like only talk about whatever, which I think is the issue with churches and places that we're supposed to go and welcome to everyone that's trying to do better and get better is us humans are the problem because we're not supposed to be judgmental. AA is not supposed to be judgmental at all, nor is church. And you have other humans stepping in and doing the exact opposite of what Jesus really died for.
Right.
Is to be non-judgmental and be inviting to all.
Right. Wasn't the whole statement of like my main purpose is to love? Didn't that trump everything else in the Bible? Like, isn't that the point?
That's the whole point.
The thing though with with Alcoholics Anonymous and like I'm more of an addict than an alcoholic, but I'm actually a Narcotics Anonymous member. But so I spoke that language, but when I went to Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, I spoke Alcoholics Anonymous, and the only meetings that truly like would be kind of hardcore about that is when you go to a closed meeting for alcoholics only, because it does state in the traditions, the 3rd tradition, the only requirement for Alcoholics Anonymous for membership is a desire to stop drinking.
Right. If you read that tradition, though, is the reason that tradition was created is to not exclude anybody for any reason. So meaning that it is open to people on drugs as well. Because I did study the tradition, so I was curious.
Yeah, but I still feel that that's debatable in the fact that if you're in a closed meeting that you talk about alcohol, it doesn't mean that
right.
it doesn't mean that you can't, even in a closed meeting. I am with you guys in the fact that you can talk about your drug use, but it has to be there has to be a alcohol issue there as well.
So this is the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? We have what's called autonomy, right?
Yeah.
Autonomy is the freedom to govern yourself. So every meeting has the right to do whatever it wants. This technically right now could be considered a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we have the right to run it exactly how we want.
Totally.
If you ever question that, go to Howe. They do some wild fucking shit there. I remember I walked into a meeting, and this is literally the meeting. There's probably 15 to 20 people in there. They all had their instruments.
Sure.
Their shares were them standing up and playing their instruments, and it was songs not even about recovery. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Totally.
But that's a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they have the right to do that.
And that's a solid point, is that there are so many meetings and so many churches. You shop around.
Yeah.
You find whichever one that you feel is like your little tribe, where your home group, where you feel the most comfortable, because you're right. Like whoever is creating that meeting, they have the right to, run that meeting.
They do. And as
feel.
a member, you should be respectful of that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Not come in and be like a dick if they're like.
And I think that also is why because I have been to meetings where sometimes you'll have an individual almost like derail the meeting because they're trying to essentially go into like a kind of a drug or drunkalogue.
Like maybe they're going to an event and they're wearing a certain shirt to make a point. Kind of thing.
Yeah,
I've been to
fuck everyone up.
I've been to plenty of meetings where I just don't agree with what they're doing in that meeting because it doesn't align with what the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous says. I keep my fucking mouth shut.
Totally.
Right? Because it's not my meeting. They took a group conscience when I was not there, and I have no right to fucking say anything about it.
Totally true.
I just don't go to that meeting anymore.
100%.
The problem for me is that newcomers oftentimes don't realize that. So they go to one meeting.
And they go to one.
And then they think that is a...
Yeah.
That's what I always
the
tell.
problem.
Totally.
But it's also our job to be like, go to another one.
Yes.
Right.
Go to a different...
It's
That
like,
meeting
go to,
sucks.
Go to a close, like a all women's. Like this is what I tell my girls, because I'll get that kind of also where it's like, you went to one, calm down,
right?
Calm down.
You been to one. Relax.
Like exactly. Go to a open, right? Depending on the age too, is like go to a mixed meeting, go to a closed like all women's meeting, because you have to have a variety of some sort, so that way you could actually like not just go to say a bad meeting, because we've all been to bad meetings.
I go to a bad meeting every fucking week, and I have to keep going there because my boyfriend is the treasurer. Sorry. They know I hate them. I'm just kidding. I love them. I don't love the meeting. Anyway, go on.
But no, it's important because it's I think a normal thing for people to, and also you have to understand you're dealing with people. I don't want to go to meetings.
Right. So
They're
looking
like,
for any reason.
Any reason to tell you it's not the one.
Yeah.
No.
How long should you go to meetings until you want to?
Forever.
Yeah.
You got to go.
But like my job is to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and if I don't have a sponsor,
I only went to doubles meetings. I only went to the ass grabbers. That's the I could never go to them. I had one men's stag. I couldn't stand it.
I used to say that until I found a men's stag that I liked all the dudes, and they were. And it was,
I liked all.
I originally was always like, oh no, they just bitch about this, that, and then it's not true. There's some guys, and I mean some guys carrying the message.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I agree.
Whoa.
But
I was with you.
Just wasn't my thing.
Went mostly to co-ed meetings.
Yeah, I had to.
But that's the same with girls or women meetings too. Like there's some that I was like, okay, this is just like gossip party, like talking about how terrible that.
And their kids are screaming in the corner. I'm like, fuck, get a babysitter, bro.
Totally, and like not loving everything. But then like then I found
a different one.
Yeah. So you have to find them.
I love to recommend CA meetings. If you have not been
those are great.
Oh, they're fucking amazing.
Wow, I haven't been to a CA meeting.
I've never gone to an NA or a CA meeting.
Okay, so this is CA. CA is Cocaine's Anonymous, and the lore, right, goes that they were cocaine addicts, right? And so they were having meetings to get off the coke, and alcohol was not a problem. So they would have their meeting and go to the bar after, and then they quickly realized that alcohol was also a problem. So CA is Alcoholics Anonymous. They use the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but you can talk about whatever the fuck you want there. So it's basically what an AA meeting should be, and the energy is off the charts. Every time I get asked to speak at a meeting in LA called the Fledgling Society, and they are like some of the best people I've ever met. I've gotten to speak at a CA meeting down in Carlsbad. There was probably 200 people there, standing ovation. Everyone's laughing, having an amazing time. The energy is just different.
It's because everyone's drunk.
Right?
I haven't gone to a CA meeting in a while.
I forget about it.
Me too.
I forget about it.
Me too.
When that's funny too, because we were talking about, you know, the alcoholic and the drug addict and things of that nature. But you know, on chapter 7 is step 12, right? So that's like the end of all the step work. And it's the very last thing it says. It says, after all, bottles were only a symbol, right? Over and over and over again in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it clarifies to us that our problem is not anything that we're ingesting. I have a threefold disease. I have a mental, physical, and spiritual sickness. And then it tells me when I straighten out spiritually, I'll straighten out mentally and physically. And it only happens in that order. My dad used to say, alcohol is a prop plane and drugs are a jet plane, right? Like it's the same thing. One just gets you there faster.
Yeah.
Right. My dad was a drinker.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild. I don't know. I think we get so caught up in semantics that we forget the point. You know, and the point is I'm missing God in whatever form that looks like for me. And as soon as I'm able to find that, all of a sudden things get different.
Right.
Right.
And that's like what's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like the transformations that not only we see within ourselves and how the drastic change in our own lives, but like in others is beautiful.
It is. Absolutely.
And I like what you're doing, because when you go from the big book and you're so on it, God's working through you all the time.
Absolutely.
And they could feel that.
Yeah.
That's the energy that
I mean, I
comes
loved
through.
when she spoke.
Yeah,
on our recovery,
that's what's nice.
I was like, oh, I love this chick.
Yeah.
Like, it was so good.
man.
I was
That's
with
what's
you the
nice.
entire time. It was
Totally.
amazing.
Yeah. When I after I was done speaking and you hugged me and I was like, oh my God, that woman is so amazing. And he's like, what are you talking? Like, you don't know her. I'm like, you don't understand the energy, like the beauty of her soul that is just like permeating from her body. Like you have God just flowing out of you in such a beautiful way. And I was like, just immensely impacted by it. And I know you don't realize that, but you need to hear that, because you blew me off my feet. And I was like, I need to know her.
Wow.
And it had nothing to do with how you look or who you like. I've heard, right?
Sure.
But I just, fuck, man. It knocked me off my feet.
Wow.
Yeah. Like,
thank you.
Of course.
I
Thank you.
felt the same listening and hearing your message.
It's true. Because the first time Shane and I met Natalie, it's probably like 18 months ago or so.
I still remember what she was wearing.
So do I. But why
Well, that means-
why
Such a
you
man
make, why you
statement,
make it
right?
like weird?
I didn't. I'm just saying that's how important to me it was.
Tone matters.
I only remember a few times what girls were wearing like 18 months ago, and a few times where I met a girl. Okay, she happens to be in the top 4.
Good. That's good. But like and because here's the thing. We knew everything. We knew a lot about her. We knew she was in the WWE, the Total Divas, all this crap, the social media, and we were like nervous to meet her, right?
Right. You would never guess that she was.
If I would have met her and not known who the fuck she was,
No,
she's a normal ass person.
Yeah.
With a just.
I don't think normal is a fair descriptor, but just because you're so far from normal, right? Like you have such a beautiful spirit, but you are very humble.
Yeah.
Like there's a humility about you that you would never guess that you had achieved any sort of fame in your life. And I'm the same. I have the same opinion. I never would have known if somebody hadn't told me. I'm like, wow, she's beautiful, and it's like hugging a brick wall, right? I was like, damn, this bitch is solid, right? I was like, fuck, I'm trying to get there. But like your exterior is rock solid, but like you're the softiest, mushiest, like beautiful light I've experienced in a very long time.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. And I don't see that lightly, right? Like you don't.
No, I don't take it lightly.
And you don't get to encounter
that.
people like that very often, right? And that's the thing that like, so when you see it, like you want to latch onto it. And I'm sure that you notice that people really do try to like glom onto you, so to speak.
Sure.
But know that it has nothing to do with fame. It has everything to do with your spirit. Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
I get to be in your presence.
Yeah. I love that.
That is really nice.
I know.
Chad, I just want to tell you how much I love you, and
Right. You two need to up the
You're
game. I don't know
great.
what you guys are doing.
I
But
think the shirts you've been wearing have been very flattering lately.
I like your flowers.
Yeah. There you go. That's what I'm talking about, bro. I've noticed. You slimmed down in the stomach area. Chest is looking
Unbelievable.
bigger. The arms are looking better. You know, there you go. That's
I
what we're
cannot
talking
with you
about.
guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Congratulations to you.
Did
and
you
yeah,
put-
man.
Thank you.
Did you put it
Like-
on me? Could you see what I was doing? Oh, damn it.
Nice.
What?
He was doing the chest moves.
Oh, God. The titty bounce.
Yeah, the titty bones.
Oh my god.
I call those booby boggles.
Yeah.
Booby boggles. Yeah.
I have to do mine by hand. You know what? I thought, since this is such a large platform, I wanted to share the thing that you were talking about, the God thing. So I know a lot of people do struggle with, the concept of God or getting to know God or prove it to me. Right. So this is what I shared Friday.
Yep,
and
I loved it.
And I had this epiphany moment when I was reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So essentially I'll ask you, do you believe that love is real? Right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Put it in my hand. Right? You can't, right? Because it's not something tangible. It's not something I can hold. But there's nothing I can tell you to prove that love is not real, correct?
Correct.
Right. Why?
Because you feel it.
Right. Love is a feeling. God is no different. And you need to experience that feeling in order to know that God is real. And you have to put in some work in order to feel that. But no, I can't put God in your hand. No, I can't show him to you. But I can tell you, just as I know that love is real because I felt it, God is real because I felt it. And you can get your own experience with that if you're willing to do the work to try.
Bam, there's her real.
That's sick. Like that is something like I told you that night that I'm going to use because it is so powerful, because you're exactly right. Like you can't, love is, everyone experiences love at some point in their life. You love your kid, you love your spouse, you love your brother, your sister, dog, same thing.
Some people, it is only their dog.
Hey, that's
or their
okay.
cat.
But sometimes the dog's the only thing that deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. But you guys,
all right, I gotta go.
Love you.
I gotta go.
I love you.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I have a
Thank
meeting.
you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is great.